Hello and welcome to another episode of Thick Slices and Deep Cuts. On today's episode, I'm going to be going through the discography of the legendary progressive titans, King Crimson. They've been around. Their first album came out all the way back in 1969. And while they're still going strong today, their final official studio album was released back in 2003. So they don't release any studio albums anymore per se, but they still release live versions of different sorts of things. I'm not going to waste too much time. I'll kind of explain more as we go because we got 13 albums to get through. So we'll just get right to it. So coming in at number 13, I'm going to go with 1971's Islands. This is a one-off lineup. You got Boz Burrell brought in to do vocals and bass, and I'm not a huge fan of Boz, and I'm not a huge fan of this album. I do like the song Sailor's Tale, which is an instrumental, but a lot of the songs on here I find kind of quiet and meandering and kind of sleepy, like Formentera Lady, I don't know, The Letters, Song of the Gulls, I don't know. I'm just not a huge fan of this album. A lot of people seem to dig this. I'm not sure why. I must be missing something, or I just don't get it, but I do like the song Sailor's Tale quite a bit, so it does have that going for it. But coming in at number 13, 1971's Islands. Okay, moving ahead, number 12, we're moving to 1982. This is what I would call the third era of the band. We've got Beat. At this point, you've got Fripp is joined by Bill Bruford, Tony Levin on bass, and Adrian Belew on stunt guitar. They're using guitar synths here. Adrian Belew, by the way, came over from the Frank Zappa family, so he's bringing all kinds of quirky ideas. I do like the sound of this album and the direction. I just don't find a lot of the songs super memorable, like the album before this and the album after it. But, Neil and Jackamee is good. Sartori and Tangier is an excellent instrumental. Songs like Heartbeat, Waiting Man, Neurotica, all those songs are okay. So this is a good album. Again, it's the second of 3 albums they did in the early half of the 80s. This is this is the one I reach for the least out of that grouping. So at number 12, I've got 1982's Beat. Okay, coming in at number 11, we're going to 1974 with Starless and Bible Black. On this album, you've got what I would call the second era. So you've got Bill Bruford on drums, you've got John Wetton on vocals and bass, and you also have on this one David Cross doing some violin work. I think a lot of people do dig this. I just find a lot of the tracks on this one kind of like Beat, where I'm just, skipping through them. The Great Deceiver, I guess that's an okay song. I do like the song Lament. And then tracks 3 through 7, I don't know what to do with them. They all seem like fragmented improvs. Like somebody told these guys to rush an album real quick. So they just found some scraps of improvs and threw them on here. However, the last song, Fracture, is probably my second favorite song they've ever done. And I recommend getting the Steven Wilson remaster because he really brings out the subtleties and the nuances, because there are parts that get pretty quiet, but there are a lot of cool things going on in that song. It's like 9 minutes long. It's got everything. It gets heavy and fast towards the end, but it's just got lots of cool stuff going on. So if nothing else, this album is worth it just for the song Fractured. First 2 tracks are pretty good as well. So coming in at number 11 from 1974, Starless and Bible Black. Coming in at number 10 from 1995, you have the album Thrack. This was the 4th era of the band. So they got together after that 80s run. They took about a 10-year break. They got back together and did this album. And it's called Thrack because you got songs like Vroom and Vroom Vroom, which are kind of fast, energetic pieces, and you got a song like Ba-Boom, which is ambient and tribal, that goes into Thrack, which is heavy and harsh. And then interspersed between that, you got quirky little Adrian Belew type songs called Dinosaur and People and, Sex, Sleep, Eat, Drink, Dream, One Time. So this is a good album. This is when the band was a 6-piece, so they were a double trio. So you brought in the same 4 guys from the 80s, but now you bring in Pat Mastelano as a second drummer, and you've got Trey Gunn on wah guitar, so he's sort of like a second bass player. So this is a very cool, unique album. So coming in at number 10, 1995's Thrack. Okay, coming in at number 9 from 1984, the Yellow Album, 3 of a Perfect Pair. I dig this album because I love guitar synthesizers. Not a lot of bands use them, especially back in the day, but the few that did, King Crimson, nobody did it better than Crimson. I like this because the first 4 songs are all catchy, quirky ones, and the last 5 are all weird, dark, experimental ones. So you got the catchy vocal ones, 3 of a Perfect Pair, Model Man, Sleepless, Man with an Open Heart. And then the final 5 are all just strange and dark. Industry. Dig Me does have vocals, but it's completely experimental. Just no warning. Lark's Tongues and Aspic Part 3, so they continue that legacy of a album of a song, a couple of songs that they did in the 70s. So, strong album. Coming in at number 9, but awesome album from 1984, 3 of a Perfect Pair. What are we at? Number 8? Okay, number 8 we've got from 1970, we've got Lizard. This is a one-of-a-kind album, too. They brought in a singer, Gordon Haskell. Great name. But this is the only album he appeared on. You've also got guest vocals from John Anderson on the title track, which is over 20 minutes long. And oh, by the way, you wonder why I'm wearing a Yes shirt? I'm going to be ranking some Yes albums later. And plus, for whatever reason, I've always kind of lumped Yes and King Crimson together. I always thought of them as somehow the same. They kind of came out at the same time. They're both progressive, and for whatever reason, I've always kind of thought of those two bands in the same light. Or maybe not the same light, but I've always just grouped those two together. Anyway, Circus. The song Circus is excellent. Indoor Games is quirky. Happy Family is just really quirky and strange. There's a lot of strange, catchy ones on here. On the title track Lizard, which is just epic. This is their jazziest album. This is very jazzy. Very cool. So I think this one gets a little overlooked too. I don't think it's not that people don't like it. I think that people just reach for, their debut album or the albums that came out closer to the mid-70s or something more modern, and they kind of forget about Lizard, which is a great one. And that's coming in at number 8. Okay, coming in at number 7, 2000, you've got The Construction of Light. So the 6-piece that was on the album Thrack, now they're reduced to a 4-piece as Bill Bruford and Tony Levin have exited the band. The fans are pretty critical of this album for whatever reason, but I think the songs on here are great. The song The Construction of Light is my favorite song from them. Fractured is a new take on that classic song from the 70s. I think that's great. Lark's Tongues and Aspic Part 4, so they continue on with those themes. Project X, Heaven and Earth at the end, that's a great song. And dropped in between those, you've got, again, Baloo's quirky vocal ones like Prozac Blues, Into the Frying Pan, and The World's My Oyster Soup, Kitchen Floor Wax Museum. And at this point, they're just really utilizing the technology in just bizarre ways. And they're making music that just sounds like it's 10 or 15 years ahead of its time. Absolutely dig this album. Don't know why it gets, maligned so much, but at number 7, 2000 is The Construction of Light. Okay, at number 6, maybe somebody's number 1. It's their debut from 1969, In the Court of the Crimson King. The title track is incredible. It's just mellotron, majestic, great melodies. Greg Lake is doing vocals on this. He left not too long after this for Emerson, Lake and Palmer, but he does provide vocals on here. His vocals are great. 21st Century Schizoid Man is one that a lot of people like. I don't know. It's okay. I don't ever need to hear it again. Let's put it that way. The song Epitaph is good. Got a good vibe to it. A couple other songs. I Talked to the Wind, Moonchild. Those are okay, but yeah, this is a great album for what it is and when it came out. I get it. Totally, just a one-of-a-kind album from them once again here. 1969, In the Court of the Crimson King. Number 5 from 74, the last album they did in the 70s. Red. If you like Crimson just rocking out, this is the album for you. Red is a rockin' instrumental. The last track, Starless, is like 12 minutes. It's got 4 minutes of an actual song, and then it just has an 8-minute long slow kind of jam. It just keeps building. It's like tension just keeps building. Also, One More Red Nightmare. Bill Bruford, whatever he's doing on the drum kit, just sounds incredible on that song. So, number 5, good one. Good, energetic, heavy one. Red from 74. Coming in at number 4, I might be the only one, but this is from 1970 and their second album, In the Wake of Poseidon. it's the same blueprint as the first album. So this goes hand in hand with In the Court of the Crimson King. Greg Lake is still here for one final album. I find myself reaching for this one far more than I do the first one. I just like the vibe on this better. I think the song Pictures of a City is excellent. I think it's better than 21st Century Schizoid Man. I think In the Wake of Poseidon, while not as great as the original album's title track, it's still excellent. Cat Food is a quirky, jazzy, odd time signature one I really dig. Catchy. And then it ends with this avant-garde, dark, experimental piece called The Devil's Triangle, which I totally dig. It's got Mellotron and everything on it. So I think this album's great. I guess I like it more than the average fan. I guess I like it more than the debut, which is considered, possibly their masterpiece. But at number 4, their second album from '70, In the Wake of Poseidon. At number 3, from '81, Discipline. This is the first of the 3 albums they did in the '80s, and the first to feature Adrian Belew and Tony Levin to go with Bruford and Fripp. Just incredible album. First time you're hearing guitar synths. Elephant Talk, Frame by Frame, and Mate Kudasai. 3 excellent songs with vocals and verse, chorus, and all that, but just so experimental and quirky. It's just the perfect marriage of how do you write a song that people like and is memorable and yet has all that experimentation. In Discipline, the song, I love it better live, but what a song that is, the way he delivers the vocals and how zany that song is and how it kicks in. Tailhun Jinjeet's another cool, strange one with spoken word. The Sheltering Sky literally made me go out and buy a guitar synthesizer. Just some of the swooshy sounds that they get on that album will just raise the, just get goosebumps on your arms. This album's great. Number 3, Discipline, masterpiece. Coming in at number 2 from 1973, got Lark's Tongues and Aspic. Lark's Tongues and Aspic Part 1 is excellent. Exiles, Easy Money is a good one. The talking drum into Lark's Tongues and Aspic Part 2 is probably the highlight here. It's 2 instrumentals that complement each other well. You got this quiet building one that goes into a harsh, heavier one. This was the first one with John Wetton on vocals and Bill Bruford and David Cross on violin. But the secret weapon here, and I wish he'd stuck around for another album or two, is Jamie Muir on percussion. He's finding all kinds of weird things to make noises with. I thought he really helped add an extra dimension to this album. Again, this is a quiet, nuanced album at times, and so I would recommend getting the Steven Wilson remaster for this one as well. So number 2, absolute classic for my favorite year of progressive rock, 1973. You've got Lark's Tongues and Aspic. And coming in at number 1, and probably a huge surprise, and we're listening to it now, their final studio album from 2003, The Power to Believe. This is what I want to hear. This is what I want to hear. I want to hear Trey Gunn's war guitar. Belew and Fripp are in their prime on what they can do with their soundscapes and the guitar synthesizers and their effects. They just got this cool, moody, dark atmospheres. You've got, I think I counted 5 awesome long instrumentals. Level 5, Electric, The Power to Believe 2, The Power to Believe 3, Dangerous Curves. You got a couple of good catchy vocal ones like Eyes Wide Open and Happy with What You Have to Be Happy With. I love this album. I love the sound on it. It's just so progressive. So that's my number 1, The Power to Believe. So real quick to recap, so many. Number 13, Islands from '71. Number 12, you've got Beat from '82. Number 10, you've got Starless and Bible Black from '74. Number 9, you have Thrack from '95. Number 8, you have Three of a Perfect Pair from '84. Number 7, you have Lizard from '70. Number 7, you have The Construction of Light from 2000. Number 6, you have In the Court of the Crimson King from '69. Number 5, you have Red from '74. Number 4, you have In the Wake of Poseidon from '70. Number 3, you have Discipline from '81. Number 2, you have Lark's Tongues and Aspic from '73. And number 1, their final one from 2003, The Power to Believe. And one thing, I just wanted to share a few other things here. King Crimson, one of those rare bands I prefer to see live, or to hear their music live. It just seems like the music takes on more life, whether it's just more heavier, more atmosphere, whatever the case is, the performances. First thing I ever heard from King Crimson was live. Boom, official bootleg from '94. This is covering the Thrack music before Thrack even came out. They did that with another thing called Level 5, where they actually kind of tell you what the music on the upcoming album is going to be. by trying it out live. So this is Heavy on the Thrack album, Heavy on the Discipline album from '81. They sprinkle in one song from Beat and one song from Three of a Perfect Pair. They play Red, the instrumental from '74. They play Lark's Tongues and Aspic 2, the talking drum, into that from '73. So this is really cool. I listened to this nonstop for a while before I started buying their other stuff. People complain about the Construction of Light's production quality. Well, Heavy Construction came out in 2000 as well, and it's got the entire album on here live. And it's got all these improv jams, and I love their improvs because their improvs aren't just like blues jamming. It's all this strange, angular guitar synthesizer, experimental stuff. So I prefer listening to the Construction of Light live on Heavy Construction. Circus Live is cool because the first disc covers 84 to 98. The second one contains live performances from the 60s and 70s. And by the way, cool packaging. Look at this one. Radical Action to Unseat the Hold of Monkey Mind is what it's called. This one came out more recently, and this is what I would call the fifth era of the band. While they don't release any studio albums, they still put out live material. And this covers basically everything from the early days, including Sailor's Tale and some of these more rare songs. It does include Level 5 from The Power to Believe, but that's the only newer song. But this is cool, and this is actually Blu-ray and CD. And speaking of videos, I got these 3 DVDs. Deja Vroom came out in '96. This is when they were a double trio off the Thrack album. Very similar to the Boom official bootleg, so that's cool. As if the 80s weren't chronicled enough, you've got Neil and Jack and Me, which includes 2 performances, one from '82 and one from '84. And then my favorite, Eyes Wide Open from 2003. It's got Live in Japan from '03, which basically covers The Power to Believe, and then some. And then the second disc has Live in London from 2000, which covers, the Construction of Light heavily. So, just awesome stuff. What more can I say? King Crimson is one of my favorite bands of all time. Certainly one of my top 2 or 3 progressive rock bands from the '70s era. And of course, I just thought they got better as time went on. A lot of people are like, well, their heyday was back in the '70s, and that can be true for a lot of bands. But I think for King Crimson, their heyday was just all of them. The early stuff was cool. The stuff they did in the early to mid '70s when Bruford got on board was even cooler. The stuff they did in the early '80s was awesome, and the stuff they did in that last period from mid '90s through the mid 2000s was, in my opinion, the best stuff they did. So I just thought they kept getting better. They just kept progressing. So there you have it, the mighty, the legendary King Crimson. So hopefully you found this interesting and fairly entertaining. So there you have it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.